All right. In the last lecture, what we did was we looked at we saw this data structure known as a Bloom filter, right? And we analyzed the data structure. So it was a different way of hashing a set for storing a set and doing membership. But instead of doing exact membership, it allows you to do approximate membership, which means that it can tell that a certain element is in the set when it is actually not, right? It can give you false positives, but there is a trade-off between the false positives and the space used for representing this set, right? The space used by the data structure. And throughout the discussions that we have done the last week as this and this week as well, uh, the main assumption, one of the crucial assumptions that we have been using, is that we have access to hash functions that are purely random, right? That is continuously, we have used that continuously. And as I said, that is not a very good assumption to make, right? So we're going to see some way to actually implement hash functions that are not purely random, yet it will give you some of the advantages, some of the nice properties that you expect from a random function, right? So for instance, so again we are going to look at sorry. So we are interested in hash functions, right? And there are a few reasons why. So till now, what we have used is that we have assumed that just a minute. Okay, just hold on. Okay. Till now, we have assumed that the hash functions are totally random, correct? And there were some very nice. There was some reasons to do it. One was that it makes the analysis becomes easier, right? Right. But there are also a few drawbacks to thinking of hash functions as being purely random, right? So if you notice the central problem, right, the reason why we want to study is that you have a set U, which is the universe, right? And you're interested in a subset of this universe, okay? And say the subset size of the subset is n, and you want to store S so that membership can be done easily, right? So you want to store this in some easy way, and if you are to use a hash function, right? And so the way you want to do is that you have a hash function h that maps the universe to a set of size n, so that you're hoping that S is injectively mapped to n, so that you can easily check whether the given element is in S or not by looking at the corresponding map and seeing whether that is equal to the element in S, right? So one of the crucial things that you want out of your hash function is that H is easy to store, right? Which means that it is very efficient to store and easy to evaluate, right? This is crucial if you want Otherwise, the whole point of trying to represent the set in a small enough using just in a small data structure and so on, it defeats the whole purpose if you actually cannot store h itself easily, right? If h itself, the only way you can store h is actually as a table, right? You can always store this h as a table, which means that its size would be so if you store h as a table, you need size something like cardinality u times log u, right? Something like this, which you don't want to, right? I mean, if you want to do this, then you don't need to worry about hashing and so on. You could just store it as it is. And also you need to evaluate the function easily, right? You need to be quick in your evaluation of h. These are the two things that you want. And purely random functions, you cannot do any of this. I mean, if you have a purely random function, then what you're saying is that the only way to efficiently store it in so that it can be computed easily is as the entire table itself, right? Which does not suit our purpose, right? It defeats the purpose of trying to have an efficient data structure for membership, right? So then we cannot. So it's in practice, we cannot assume that a random function is purely the hash function is purely random. Whereas for our analysis, we seem to assume that the hash function is indeed truly random, so that the analysis becomes easier. Right? So what we're going to see is how do you trade off between the two, right? How do you come up with hash functions that are easy to store and easy to evaluate, which are not purely random, but yet have some of the features that you expect out of a random function, right? So to that end, so we have seen some set of hash functions, right? We have seen pairwise independent hash family and so on. So let's define this. So one of the oldest definitions, right, when it was formally studied about hash families and their guarantees, let's look at what is known as a universal hash family. So remember here that in practice, you might use some fixed function as a hash function, and it might perform well depending on the input and so on. But what we are doing here is we are trying to come up with a hash function, hash family, that is not purely random, yet on which we can give provable guarantees. Right. So if you take many of the hash functions that you use in practice might not give you provable guarantees, but what you want here is a class of is a hash family that where you can actually give some provable guarantees on its performance and so on. Right. So let's look at look at what is known as a universal hash family. Okay. So what is a universal hash family? So let's look at it. So we'll say that a set of functions h, okay, this is from the universe U to a set n, okay, is, let's look at 2 universal for now, is said to be 2 universal, right, if for any 2 x1 and x2 not equal, right, the probability that when you sample a function h from the family, h of x1 is equal to h of x2 is at most 1 over n. Okay. Right. So this is so if a set of functions, right, set of functions h has this property. So this such a hash family h which has this property is known as a 2 universal hash family. In particular, you can generalize this to k universal. Right. K universal would mean that if you had x1 and x2 and so on xk, right, then the probability when you sample h from h, h of x1 is uh, equal to h of x2, right? There is a k-way collision. This is at most 1 over n to the k, right? So this is what would be k universal. And if you look at it, if you consider, right, so this is one observation that you can see: the set of all functions from u to n is k universal for every k, isn't it? Right, because it is independent, right? I mean, if it is purely random, then it is k universal for every k. So what we want is a construction of universal families, say 2 universal, 3 universal, and so on, such that the construction is easy, such that there is a small set, right? So you want this set to be small, you want the set of functions to be small and easily computable, right? So have we seen universal hash families before, do you think? Where have we seen, what is an example of a universal hash family that we've seen? Have you seen such a family before? Yeah, the pairwise independent hash family, right? So if you notice, right, so this is again that you can see, if h is a pairwise independent hash family, then it is 2 universal, right? In fact, it is said to be strongly 2 universal. Okay, this is the way in which was originally defined. It's called strongly 2 universal, right? Where this inequality is replaced by inequality. So that is a two universal family, and we know constructions of 2 universal families, right? Um, so the question is, how do they perform, right? How do they perform as hash functions, right? For instance, you take all the applications, all the examples that we have seen till now. Suppose instead of a purely random function as your hash function, suppose you were to use a 2 universal hash family. What guarantees can you give about the performance of all these algorithms? Right? And that's something that we're going to see now. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So first, let's look at this definition, right? Let's look at this definition here, uh, and see why this definition is makes sense, right? I mean, why define it this way? Is it the best that you can do? Is it possible that you can get a better guarantee for your collisions and so on, right? So let's try to see why this is the best that you can hope for. Why this definition is indeed correct, right? That you cannot hope to get a better uh, probability value in this setting here than what is written here. Okay, so let's see why that is the case first. Okay, so let h be any element of h. Let h be a hash function, right? Now for x not equal to y, okay, in the universe, okay, let consider this function x y h, okay, which is 1 if h of x is equal to h of y, right? If there is a collision, it is 0 otherwise. Correct? Now, what does the definition of universalities tell you? It tells you that if if sorry, if H is a two universal family, then the sum over all the functions in H, delta of x comma y comma h, is at most cardinality of H divided by n. Right? This is what it says. If you fix an x and y, then the two universality says that if you randomly sample a function h from h, then the probability that there is a collision, right, is 1 over n. So the total number of collisions is cardinality h over n, right, because of the definition, right? So now what we will see is that this is indeed quite tight. You can't do much better, right? So this is a theorem that tells you that the definition is probably the best that you can get, best you can hope for if you want to, if you're working with two universal families, right? So for any family h of functions, right, where h is the set of functions from the set u to n, okay, and let's assume that cardinality of u is equal to, say, m for now, okay. For any family of such functions, right, there will always exist x and y in the universe such that delta x comma y comma h, right, when you sum over all the functions in h, this will be at least cardinality h times 1 minus n, 1 divided by n minus 1 divided by m, okay. So in other words, what it is telling you is that right, alternately what you can see, it tells you is that there exists x and y such that if you randomly sample a function h from the family, the probability that h of x is equal to h of y is at least 1 over n minus 1 over m, okay, where m is actually the cardinality of the universe. And since you're working for working with hashing, you know that the cardinality of u is much larger than the table into which you're going to store this, right? So in some sense, no matter which family of functions you take, and you're looking at collisions, pairwise collisions, which is what is being captured by two universality, then you cannot hope to get a better definition than less than or equal to 1 over n, 1 over n, right? That's what this theorem is trying to tell you, right? So this tells you that that definition is probably the best that you can hope for. Is the statement of this theorem clear? Any questions? Right? So let's just see a brief proof of this. The proof is it's not very complicated. So what you do is let's take let h be some function in this family, right? And let's take a z, right, which is one of the images, right, in n, okay, and let's look at the set of all pre-images, okay. So we'll define the set az. This is the set of all x in the universe such that h of x is equal to z, right? All the pre-images of z, right, given by the hash function h, right? So if you look at the collection az where Z is in N, right? This is a partition of the universe. Correct? You look at all possible elements in N and you look at its pre-images, then it forms a partition, right? So now, what can you say about the set of um, collisions between two such elements? So, for notice that if you have, say, if you take AW and AZ, right, where W is not equal to Z, then you know that for every X in AW and Y in AZ, right, H of X is not equal to H of Y, right? There are no collisions. So the only collisions, right, only collisions uh, created by H, created by H are among those within one of these sets, correct? So what is the total number of collisions for the function H? What is the total number of collisions? How many collisions are there? Sum over sum AZ C2. Yeah, yeah. So okay, so that will be the total number of collisions. You're right, right. So that is sum over. So what I want to compute is this quantity, right? I want to compute uh, for all X in U, for all X comma Y in U. So maybe I'll just reword it. I want to compute this quantity. It is delta of X comma Y comma H, say, right? So it's what Sarthak is saying. So this would be the two factor is just gone because we'll count certain things twice. This is summation over all the Z in N AZ times cardinality AZ minus 1, right? And what we can say is that this quantity here, right, this term, this is minimized, right? This is minimized precisely when all the AZs are the same, right? So that is something that you can just verify, right? This is minimized precisely when the cardinality of AZs are equal, right? Which means that every class, right, every part in the partition has the same number of elements, which is something like m over n. So this is at least n times m over n times m over n minus 1, right? This is m square times 1 minus n minus 1 over n minus 1 over m, right? So now what is the so now if you look at the total number of collisions across all functions h in H, right? This must be at least cardinality of H times m square times 1 over n minus 1 over m, right? So this is the, if you take, so you look at collisions for a particular H, you sum it over all values of all functions H, then the total number of collisions must be at least so much. Then there must exist two, then surely there must exist, there exists X and Y in the universe such that if you look at the collisions of X comma Y, uh, for all H in the family H, this must be at least um, cardinality H times 1 over n minus 1 over m. Right? It's just basic summing up, right? It cannot be that everyone is less than this quantity, because you need to sum it over all possible pairs. So then what it means is that for some two X and Y in U, this must happen. And therefore, this basically tells you that, for these two X and Y, the probability that when you sample H, uh, H of X is equal to H of Y, um, is at least 1 over n minus 1 over m. So it's just a simple calculation, but what it tells you is that the definition of two universality is sort of like the best that you can hope for. You cannot get a different, better definition. Right? Is this clear? Is this calculation clear? It's just simple algebra, right? Nothing particular about hash families and so on. It's talking about any function, right? You cannot do better than hope for a collision probability of at most 1 over n. That's what this is, right? Any questions so far? Okay. So now let's see what happens if you use two universal functions, right, instead of perfectly random function. Right? So you want to see what guarantees can you give when you use two universal functions, two universal hash family, instead of uh, truly random functions. Right? So let's start with our balls and bins itself, right? So you're throwing m balls into m bins and so on. So we had this bound about the expected load in each of the bins as well as the maximum load, right? So let's look at the case where you have, say, again, m balls and n bins, right? And you want to calculate, say, the load, or right, like the load of the you're interested in the load of the bins, right? Both the expected value and um, and the maximum load, right? So what can you say about the expected load? So say you have balls b1, b2, and so on till bm, right? And you have n bins, right? So what can you say about the load in a particular bin I? So fix a bin I and you're interested in the load in bin I, where instead of random function, you're going to use a h sampled from a 2 universal family. What can you say about the load? Say you use a pairwise independent hash family. Okay, so you use, say, instead of 2 universal, say use a pairwise independent hash family. What can you say about the load? The expected, for instance, what is the expected load in bin I? Is the question clear? Right, so I'm going to throw so you're looking at so it's like a hash function, right? So if you want to think about it, you want to map a set with m elements into a set with into these you're looking at functions, right, from m to n, and you want to know what is the number of elements that are getting mapped to a particular I, right? And the map is basically is an h sampled uniformly from at random from, say, a pairwise independent hash family. What can you say about the expected load, right? Expected size of number of elements which are mapped to a particular I. Say m is equal to n. Is something unclear? Is do you have any questions? Can someone guess what should it be? The what was in the case? What is the load in the case of random function, right? When you choose, so what does it mean to say that you're taking a random function? It's like saying the a random function is like as follows, right? You can think of a random function as choosing an h uniformly at random from the set of all functions, right? This is what it means to say you're choosing a random function. So in the case of a random function, what was the expected load? Can someone say that? What is the expected load in the case of a random function? That you know, right? Can someone just tell me what that is? Yeah, M over n in the case of random function. Yeah. So what happens here when you have a pairwise independent hash family? What do you guess? What do you think it should be? So this is what you want to know, right? So for instance, if H is a pairwise independent hash family, right? What is the probability that when you sample an H from H, right, H of X is equal to I? Okay? Fix X and I. M over n, right? As Pragyan is saying, that still should go. It's going to be M over n, because if H is a pairwise independent hash family, this probability is again 1 over n, right? So this is something that we saw when we studied pairwise independent hash family. This probability is again, it is again going to map elements uniformly, right? That the probability that an element is mapped to a certain location being uniform is still going to be there. That we are not losing out on, right? So the probability that you're going to, an element X is going to get mapped to I is again 1 over n. Therefore, the expected load doesn't change. Expected load is still M over n, right? There's no change in that, right? See, the thing is the uniformity, the probability that the function, right, that the family that you are looking at, the probability that a particular element gets mapped to a bin I, that is again going to be uniform. It is just, it is the problem here is that that uniformity alone is not sufficient to give you a good hash family, right? So here is a small question. Maybe we can spend some more time, right? So here is a small question. Can you think of construct a set family H of hash functions such that, right, other than pairwise, can you think of a very simple family of hash functions H such that the probability that when you sample H from H, H of X is equal to I? This probability is 1 over n, right, for every X and I. Can you think of a very simple hash function which satisfies this condition, but yet which, so you think of a simple function as a hash family, but which we cannot actually use for any hashing purposes, which is very bad for hashing. Can you think of such a simple hash family? Construct a set of hash functions, right, for which this condition, uniform condition.
So like there can be n functions such that every function always maps all elements to the same element.
Exactly, right? If you take the set of constant functions, right? So if you take the set of constant functions, right? So which is basically the set of all H. So you can say it is Hi from U to N, where Hi of X is equal to I for every X in U. Right? So you look at all such functions Hi, right? So there are n such functions, right? So now if you take this set of functions, right? So if you fix an X, correct? Now, what is the probability that when you sample an H from this function H, H of X is equal to I? Well, there are n functions in your class, right? The cardinality of your family is n, and there exists exactly one function which maps it to I, right? So this probability is 1 over n. So if you take the set of constant functions, they will always satisfy the condition that the way they map elements into bins is completely uniformly at random. But the problem is that this is a very bad set of hash functions, right? These are not very good hash functions at all, because why would you want a hash function where you map every element to the same element? So that will just create a lot of collisions, right? So as a hash function, they are bad, but as far as uniformity is concerned, they work very well. Right? It's the same thing. So pairwise independent hash family that way is uniform, because of which the expected load is just m over n. Right. So the expected behavior of this two universal hash family or pairwise independent hash family is exactly as though it were a random function. The problem comes when we try to look at the maximum load. What can you say about the maximum load, and how does whether it is small or large? Right. That is where the analysis is going to differ. Right. Any questions so far? Okay, so let's try to find out what is the maximum load, right? For instance, okay. So you have so the way we have written here. So there are these BM balls, right? B1, B2 up till BM. Okay. Think of the random variable. Okay. Let let xij with a random variable that is 1 if bi and bj, okay, land in the same bin. Okay, and it is 0 otherwise. Okay. Now the number of collisions is, which is x, which is basically sum over all I and j xij. Right. This is the number of collisions, and the expected what is the expected number of collisions? What is this value? This is by the linearity of expectation. This is 1 less than or equal to I less than j less than or equal to m. Expectation of xij. What is expectation of xij? If you're using a two universal hash family or a pairwise independent hash family, let's say it's a two universal hash family, what is expectation of xij? Yeah, it is so if it is 1 over n, say it's at most 1 over n if it's a two universal hash family, but yeah, it's 1 over n, right? Because this quantity, this is the probability when you sample h from h, uh, h of bi is equal to h of bj, right? So this is at most m choose 2 times 1 over n. Okay. So this is right. And then so you can just use, if you just use Markov's inequality, what will tell you that the probability that x is greater than m square over n, right, is at most something like half, right? So this, because this is at most m square over 2n, right? So then if you take, so this is some bound on the number of collisions, right? So if you take so let L be the maximum load, right, over all the bins. Okay. Then if this is the maximum load over all the bins, then you know that x, which is the number of collisions, must be at least uh, sorry, L choose 2, right? Because the maximum load is the number of bins, balls in one bin. So the number of collisions must be at least L choose 2. So what you can say is that the probability that the load is so probability that, say, L choose 2 is at least m square over n, right? This is at most half, right? And in particular, what this means is that the probability that your load is at least uh, something like m square root 2 by n, right? This is at most half, right? Because this is L minus 1 choose 2, L minus 1 divided by 2. And yeah, so maybe not L, but say L minus 1, just to be very precise. Yeah. Right. So what it tells you is that with probability, so you get a much weaker bound in the sense that just a minute. Okay. So what this tells you is that with probability at most half, or rather with probability at least half, right? The maximum load is at most 1 plus m times square root 2 divided by n. So for instance, in the case when m is equal to n, this gives you that the maximum load is at most just 1 plus square root 2n, right? In the case of when we are using a 2 universal family. Right? In particular, what it means is that if I want to use hashing with chaining, correct? And the analysis that we did for balls versus bins was when you had the completely random hash function, and it told you that the chaining is fairly good because it gives you a worst case complexity of log n over log n. Whereas if you use any hash family, say a 2 universal hash family, then what you get is something like 1 plus square root 2n, right? Which is much worse off than what you expect in the case of a purely random function, right? So its behavior is slightly worse off than what we expect in a purely random function, correct? But this is the thing is that 2 universal families are easy to construct and easy to maintain and very efficient to compute and so on, right? So you have a trade-off between a random function which you can't practically implement because they're just not feasible enough to use. But if you were to use a 2 universal family like the one that we saw, then you get slightly worse off performance, but an actual realizable hash function in your hand, right? Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So then, so suppose we want to use. So we have done this, right? So suppose we want to use hashing, right? So suppose we want to use a 2 universal family for hashing, right? And we want uh, a similar behavior like uh, when we are using a purely random function, in the sense that we want the worst, say for instance, even the worst case complexity to be something like order 1, right? So what are we saying here? So suppose you want to hash m elements, right, into a hash table of size n, then the number of collisions that you're going to get is something like m times the worst case running time is m times square root 2 over n, right? So what does this tell you? So what sort of what should your size of your hash table be so that you get constant um, worst case constant time search? So find the complexity of finding and searching is constant. What should be the size of your hash table, right, based on this analysis? Someone who has not answered till now. How large should your hash table be so that if you use a 2 universal hash family for hashing, the worst case complexity of searching is still constant. How large should the table be based on this analysis that you've just done? Right. So this is what I want to know. What is the size of the hash table? So that if we use two universal family, the complexity of searching is order 1. Just a minute, I'll be back in 1 minute. Just hold on. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah. So can someone tell me what should be the size of the hash table? Anyone?
M square.
M squared, right? So the size of the hash table should be order M squared. It just follows from this thing, right? So if you substitute n to be M squared, then this is just constant, right? So if you want to store M elements, then to get order 1 search time, and if you're going to use a 2 universal hash family, then you need something like order M squared, right? The size should be at least something like order M squared. Is this clear? Is this clear to everyone? Right. So the question is it possible to do something better? Right? Is it possible to have hashing? Right? If you can do a similar way, but then say you use only order M space, and yet you are able to do um, search in a constant time. So towards that right, towards that goal, let's define what is known as a perfect what is called perfect hashing, right? So we will say that a function h, right, a hash function h is perfect for a set S if the if h is injective for the set S. Okay. So if you have a set S, and so we'll say a hash function is perfect if for this particular set S um, the function is injective, right? So it means that for this particular S there is no collision. Okay. And similarly, we can define what is called a perfect hash family. So right. So what is a perfect hash family? So to let me just so we'll say that a set H from functions from the universe to n, okay, is perfect, is a perfect hash family, right? If for every subset S of the universe of size, say, n, right, there exists a function h in H that is perfect for S, right? So it's a set of functions again, such that for every S that you take, there is one function that is perfect for it. So notice that this is sort of the things that you can ask. So here is one small question, right? Does there exist a function h from U to n that is perfect for every S? Is this possible? Right? So why is this not possible? Yeah. Right, because I mean, the set is since the cardinality of U is much greater than cardinality of n, so no matter which function you take, there will always be a collision, and so therefore it's not you cannot have one such function. So the perfect if you want to define perfect hashing for for any subset and so on, what you want is a collection of sets, collection of functions, such that for every set of size n, you can find at least there exists at least one such perfect hash function within that family. Right? This is what you can hope. This is what you can hope for in the best case, right? And so what we are going to see. So it's also second. So the first thing is that you need the question is about the existence of such hash families. But if you really want to use it in practice, it's not enough to prove the existence of such a family, but you also need a way to efficiently get hold of this family, right? So let's think about the following question, right? What is known as the static dictionary problem. Where you have a set S of the universe given to you, and the goal is basically the following. The goal is to store S such that membership can be performed in order 1. Right? Now, what we have seen is that if you use, so this is something that we have seen already, right? If you use, if you use two universal families, then there is a data structure for us for this. Of size order cardinality S squared, correct? This is what we have just seen. Now the question is, what we're going to see is that it is also possible. So if you had a perfect hash family, then you can do this in order 1, right? But the thing is, there should be what will be interesting is given this S, there is a way to actually get hold of this perfect hash function, right? Which is the perfect hash function that you should use, correct? So what we will see is now a way to do this. Okay, So we will just briefly describe it right now and then do the more the analysis and so on maybe in the next class. So this is the method of Friedman, Komlosh, and Zemeredy, right? Called the FKS hashing. So this gives you a way to hash a set S, which is given beforehand, into a table of into a data structure of which uses order cardinality as size, from which you can do membership queries in order one time worst case. Okay. This is called FKS hashing. It's from the 80s. And the first thing to note is that you cannot just use two universal hash families because the because of the collision and so on. So this you cannot do. And the idea that Friedman, Komlosh, and Zemeredy say uses is that they do some level of two. They do two levels of hashing. Okay, so what they do is they take S first, okay, and they hash it into a table. Okay, this table is going to be of size something like order M, not M, order cardinality S, right? And then you look at the elements that are say colliding, and then you use a secondary hash function here, right? So if there are say some C collisions, right? There are C collisions. You use a secondary hash function of size order C squared, so that at this point there will be no collisions, right? So instead of one hash table where you map the element to, you have two hash tables. So first you map into an entry in the first hash table, and from there it gets mapped to a secondary hash table which has size say order C square. If there are C collisions, then the second hash table is constructed such that it has order C squared. So then in the secondary hash table there is not going to be any collision. So you can so therefore the query becomes order one, right, by combining these two hash functions. And the interesting thing is to note here is that these two hash functions, right, both of them are two universal hash functions. They are obtained from two universal hash families. So you know that if you take two universal hash family, then you will not get constant the complexity of searching being a constant. But then what you do is you have this two level of hashing where at each level you use a hash function from a two universal hash family. Right? The interesting thing to note here is you can do this, and so there are a couple of things. One is how do you analyze this, right? Assuming you have such a hash family, assuming a suitable two universal hash family, you need to analyze this, and then you also need to show that there is a suitable two universal hash family from which we can actually use for the two levels of hashing, right? So I will not start the analysis right now. I don't think I'll have enough time to finish everything, so I think I'll stop for now. But we will continue we'll finish off this analysis of the FKS hashing on Monday, right? um, so any questions regarding today's lecture? Any questions regarding today's lecture? So then we will stop for now. We'll continue with the analysis of FKS hashing on Monday, and I'll be releasing the second problem set by tonight or tomorrow morning. And I have almost finished the evaluation of the first piece set. I'll hand it over to you by hopefully by this weekend or early next week. Okay. So yeah, so that's all that I wanted to say. Yeah. Any other queries or questions? All right. So then let me stop for now. We'll continue on Monday. Yeah, thank you.